This video reviews the differences between frequencies, proportions or percents, and percent changes. What I've got open here are the Try-It-One data, which is the UC Davis student enrollment by residency type and year. And this first sheet here is just the raw data that I downloaded straight from Canvas. And then what I've copied over into the next sheet is the sheet that I'm analyzing with the data. So the first thing that I did was create my total row. I added this row total at the bottom, and then I used the sum function to add up all of the students from the different residency types in each year. And so now I've got the total student enrollment at UC Davis by year. Then what I want to do is try to understand what percent of students are in each residency type. And so all I did within each year was say, okay, in Californian students, I've got the number of Californian students, the cell B2, divided by the total number of students in 2011, which is 31,732 in B6. And so that cell is equal to B2 divided by B6. And then I did that for the next one. The number from other states, B3, divided by the total, B6. The number from outside the USA, B5, divided by the total number, B6. So that's what the formula is right there. And so I've got all of those calculations. I did that for each year and for each residency type. And that gives me the proportion between 0 and 1. To make this a little clearer, I'm just going to turn these numbers into percents. So I highlight the cells that I want to convert from decimals to percents. I click the percent button, and because I want a little bit more detail, I'm going to increase the number of decimal points in the cells to 2, following the standard APA format. Now I have a table that gives me, in each year, what percentage of UC Davis students were in each residency category. And in California, I've got in 2011, 88.5%, versus 2014, 83.6%. So of the total number of UC Davis students, the representation of Californians has declined over time. And that's the same exact trend that we visualized in our 100% stacked column chart. This was the column chart that I created just by highlighting the data that we have in the first table. You go in here, you say insert, you want your 100% stacked column chart, and then you just start cleaning it up to make it look more visually clear, and you fix the axis and all of that. And so it's the same information in this stacked column chart as we have in this percent by residency type. So this 88.5% is the height of this light green bar for Californian students in 2011. So what are the two different ways that I would interpret this information? And one thing to keep in mind is that if you're trying to think about it from the point of view of a student applying to UC Davis from California, then what you're trying to think about is your chance of getting in out of the total pool of applicants. So if the representation of Californian students is going down from year to year, you could interpret that as your chance of getting in as a Californian student out of all of the different applicants from everywhere in the world as that relative chance going down. One thing that's also true is that the total number of Californian students has not declined. So in 2014, there were 28,853 Californian students, versus 2011, there were 28,086 students from California. So the number of Californians didn't go down, it's just that the total number of students went up, but the total number went up more than the number of Californians. And so the relative number, the percent of Californians went down. And so if you're describing these data and you say the number of California resident students at UC Davis increased over time, that's true. But from the perspective of a student that's a California resident applying to UC Davis, that might not accurately portray to them that the chance of California resident applicants getting in might have gone down relative to the total number of applicants from all other places. And so it's true that the number of California resident students increased over time, but it might be a little misleading because the proportion or the percent of California resident students among the UC Davis population has gone down. So the other way that we can think about changes is similar. So we've got the total numbers or frequencies of students here versus the percents. When we're comparing changes over the course of time, then we could also make a similar comparison. We could compare the numbers of students that changed over time, or we could compare the percent change. And those are pretty different comparisons. So let's figure out why they're so different. So first, let's just calculate the difference in number. And if we just want the difference in number between 2014 and 2011, we just take the number of students in each residency type in 2014 minus the number of students in 2011. So the number of students from California at UC Davis increased by 767. If I want to do that for the rest of the residency types, I just drag the little bottom corner down and I use the fill function. And so I've applied that same formula in each row. So it's the number from other states in 2014 minus the number from other states in 2011. So looking down here now, the number from unknown, it was the same in 2011 and 2014. There was no change. The number from outside the USA increased by 1,800. The number from other states increased by 206. The number from California increased by 767. Total, there was a growth of 2,776 students at UC Davis. But the percent change was the relative increase. So not just what was the number that grew, but what was the growth relative to how many people or how many students were in each category at the beginning of the period. And so that was the function where we said, let's take the difference between 2014, hold on, don't forget your equal sign. Let's take the number of Californian students in 2014 minus the number of Californian students in 2011, and then we divide it by the old number, so 2011. And then I'll use the fill to bring that down and do that same calculation for every row. I'll use the percent button to turn that into percents, and I'll increase the decimals to 2 places so I have more detail. And this column is the exact same as in the tutorial write-up of the table with the percent changes for each group. Now what I'm seeing is that the percent change for Californian students, there was a growth of 2.7%. For other states, a growth of 11.6%. And for outside USA, 96% growth. And then the total increased by 8.75%. So what do these different percent changes mean? Well, a positive number means that the number in 2014 was bigger than the number in 2011. If it was smaller, that would give us a negative percent change. So imagine that instead of this growth that we have here, we had some category where the number in 2011 was 10,000 and the number in 2014 was only 8,000. What would my percent change look like? It would be a negative 20% because the difference was 2,000 students fewer. 2,000 divided by 10,000 is 20%. So it's a negative change, means it got smaller. Positive changes means that it got bigger. And then when we're comparing the differences here, we've got 767 is a much larger number of an increase than 206, but it's 767 out of 28,000. So the percent change is a lot smaller versus 206 out of 1,774. So that percent change is bigger because 206 out of that small number gives you a larger percent than 767 out of this really big number. And then this percent change for outside USA, it's 96.37%. So it's almost a 100% change. What does that mean? It means that the number of students outside the USA almost doubled. And so take a look at this number here. So the difference from 2011 to 2014, 1,803 students. The number in 2011, 1,871 students. So between 2011 and 2014, there was a growth of students from outside the USA. The number was about the same as the number that were originally in 2011. And so when the number almost doubles, that's when you get a percent change of about 100%. If you had a percent change of 200%, that means that the number would almost triple. If you had a percent change of 50%, that means that the number was 1.5 times bigger. If you had a percent change of 50%, that means that your number is half the size, or dropped by half of what it used to be. And so it's smaller, is what a negative percent change represents.